Okay, in this video I'm going to try and make some wallpaper. Now I've just started with an image 1920 by 1080. I've got a background layer, and if we have a look at the colour here on our background layer, I've just made it an off-white colour, F2, F2, F2. Pure white is just straight Fs, right? And that's this background colour. I've now got a dark colour, so we've got 1A, 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 1A. And that's going to be not quite black, but it's pretty dark. I'm going to create a new layer. You can see I'm using GIMP. I'm using the pencil tool because I want hard edges as opposed to the soft edges of the paintbrush, and I want to use a pretty big abstract brush, and you can see I've used this acrylic brush, and the size of the brush here, it's 380 pixels in diameter, so it's quite large. We'll zoom in here a little bit. What we're going to do is just try and fill a little bit more than a third. I'm just going like this, just to give me some randomness in that. Now the key part here is I need to make this tile neatly. To make this tile neatly, I'm actually going to flip half the image over to the side, but before I do that, I'm going to fill in all the holes with black, at least most of the holes anyway. Now I've got my image is 1920 pixels wide. I'm going to create a grid image. We can do this two ways actually. Control A. Now we're going to make a grid. Alright, layer. Okay, what are we going to do? View, snap to grid, turn that on. Image, configure grid. We'll set it to 1920. Half of 1920 is 960. Alright, and that's going to create a grid line halfway along. If we show the grid, we'll see we've got a grid line here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to got snap to grid on, so it's going to take this perfectly. Control C there. I'm going to go Control V, get the same image. I'm going to paste it to a new layer. I'm going to hide this one if you like. You can see this. I'm now going to go layer to image size. I want this to go full width, and then I'm going to flip it, so it'll be on the opposite side. I'm going to unhide this one, and we can see we've got some extra bits here. I basically want to again select exactly up to this halfway line on the layer below, delete that. Alright, and this image now should tile perfectly. You can see this dot here is exactly the opposite half of this one, but it's also, we've got a little bit of stuff here that we possibly want to clean up. So we're going to do a little bit of clean up here. We're going to change our paintbrush to something like this. That should be fine. Just going to clean that up. Okay, my opacity is down real low, that's why that was taking a bit longer to do. I want to do the same at the other end. Just get rid of, okay, make these layers one, layer merge down, so it's all on one layer. Can clean that up. You know, we might clean up some of these dots, it's possibly not that important. What I do want to do is fill in some of these white dots up here. Now, where I was playing on the edge here, I need to make sure I do exactly the same on the other side. Make sure, because that's where they will tile over on, realistically, only on people who've got screens wider than 1920, which is certainly going to be some people, but not most people. We can see here, this is where we've got some tiling happening here. We can fill this in a little bit, maybe a little less obvious. Just mess up one side here, so it's not quite as obvious that that's where the tiling is happening. But because we're not actually tiling ourselves on this line. This is where this particular image does tile, but in our game we're tiling on this far edge. Alright, now this is too dark for what we want. We're actually going to drop this right down, maybe a little bit darker. See what 70 looks pretty close. Get rid of the grid. Alright, that's kind of the look I was after. Alright, and we're probably going to make one more layer on top of this again. So we're going to pretty much repeat that process. New layer, it's a blank layer. I've got my pencil again for the hard edge. Same color. I'm going to change this back to the acrylic brush, though, if I can find it here. And it's still quite large. I don't know if that's the right acrylic brush. I think it must have been. Anyway, it's alright to have a little bit of difference. We'll again get some colours going here. This is maybe not quite as nice a brush. Now again, we're going to show the grid. I'm going to again remove this half of that layer, and I'm going to duplicate the layer. I'm going to flip the layer and merge it down, and we'll get rid of our grid, not needed. Okay, this is pretty close to the look I'm after, but I'm going to just wind this one back just a touch, so 90. Alright, this is going to just give us some texture here in our game. We could do one of these layers again at the bottom. Maybe we'll try that. We'll duplicate this layer. We will flip the layer vertically. And you can see it's a different shade to what's up here, even though it's a duplicate, because this is partly transparent. It's 90% opaque, which means 10% transparent, but which means that this one underneath is also colouring it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this right down, because I really don't want too much of it. Just want a little bit of it sticking out up the bottom where needed. And I might layer to image size, layer, duplicate layer, and I'm going to make the second copy of this the same transparency as that one, which is 70. Alright, and that should make this color match pretty much be the same as that one. So we've got a 90 and a 70. Possibly if we move them around, why won't they go? Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to export that. Actually, let's have a look. We'll put a grid back on here. I'll make the grid just 100 by 100. And that will allow us to see where we want to tile this. So we can see up here, it's going to be a lot easier if we lift this layer, if we move this layer back up above this line. So this is the bottom layer here. We're going to try and keep all of it above this line here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 pixels tall. And at the bottom, we've also got everything under the bottom 200 pixels there. Okay, let's export this image. To desktop.jpg. And we'll import that into our rule set shortly.